Marcus had been running on autopilot for months, navigating the challenging waters of single parenthood with the determination of a man who had no other choice but to keep moving forward. His days blended into a predictable routine of work, daycare, pickup, dinner preparation, bedtime stories, and the quiet moments afterward when exhaustion would finally catch up with him. As a divorced father of 6-year-old Emma, he had learned to find strength he never knew he possessed, but some days felt harder than others. The morning that would change everything started like any other, with Emma's cheerful chatter filling their small kitchen as she ate breakfast and he packed her lunch, both of them preparing for another ordinary day that would turn out to be anything but ordinary. The incident happened at Miller's Park, a place Marcus and Emma visited regularly on Saturday afternoons. It was their special time together, a tradition they had maintained even through the difficult transition of divorce and his adjustment to life as a single parent. Emma loved the playground, particularly the tall spiral slide that she had finally become brave enough to attempt just a few weeks prior. Marcus typically positioned himself strategically, where he could keep an eye on her while also enjoying a few moments of peace on a nearby bench, watching other families and occasionally chatting with fellow parents who understood the unique challenges of raising children. On this particular afternoon, the park was busier than usual, filled with families taking advantage of the warm weather and children's laughter echoing across the open space. Marcus noticed the little girl immediately because she reminded him so much of Emma at that age. Perhaps a year or two younger, with the same fearless spirit and boundless energy that seemed to characterize children who hadn't yet learned to be afraid of the world. She was playing alone near the monkey bars, her bright yellow dress making her easy to spot among the other children. What concerned Marcus was that he couldn't identify any adult who seemed to be supervising her, and in his months of regular park visits, he had developed an instinctive awareness of which children belonged to which parents. Something felt off about the situation, though he initially dismissed his concern as the overprotectiveness that had developed since becoming a single father, responsible for Emma's complete safety and well-being. The moment that changed everything happened quickly, yet Marcus would later remember it in vivid slow motion. The little girl had climbed to the top of the playground structure and was attempting to navigate across a challenging rope bridge when she lost her footing. Marcus watched in horror as she began to fall backward, her small hands losing their grip on the rope as she tumbled toward the hard ground below. Without thinking, without considering the risk to himself or the fact that this child was a complete stranger, Marcus sprinted across the playground with a speed and agility he hadn't used since his high school track days. He reached the little girl just in time, catching her in his arms and cushioning her fall with his own body, both of them tumbling safely to the ground in a heap of tangled limbs and relieved breathing. The little girl, whose name he would soon learn was Sophie, looked up at him with wide brown eyes filled with tears and gratitude. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, and in that moment, Marcus felt the same protective instinct he experienced with Emma, an overwhelming need to ensure this child's safety and comfort. As he helped her to her feet and checked for injuries, he began looking around desperately for her parents or guardians, expecting someone to come running with concern and appreciation. Instead, what he discovered would shock him to his core and set in motion a series of events that would transform not only his life, but also his understanding of family, love, and the unexpected ways that strangers can become the most important people in our lives. Sophie's mother, as it turned out, was not at the park at all. Through gentle questioning and patient conversation, Marcus learned that the little girl had wandered away from her home, which was located in the low-income housing complex adjacent to the park. Her mother, Sarah, was a young single mother working double shifts at 2 different jobs just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. Sophie had been left with a teenage babysitter, who had become distracted by her phone and failed to notice when the adventurous 4-year-old had slipped out of the apartment to explore the nearby playground that she could see from her bedroom window. The babysitter was frantic when Marcus and Emma accompanied Sophie home, and Sarah's reaction when she arrived home early from work to find a stranger with her daughter was initially one of fear and suspicion that quickly transformed into overwhelming gratitude when she understood what had happened. What Marcus discovered about Sarah and Sophie's living situation moved him deeply and reminded him of his own struggles, though his challenges were different in nature. Sarah was 23 years old, barely out of college herself, trying to raise Sophie alone after the child's father had abandoned them when Sophie was just 6 months old. She worked as a cashier at a grocery store during the day and cleaned office buildings at night, sleeping only 4 or 5 hours between shifts and relying on a patchwork of babysitters and neighbors to help care for Sophie when she couldn't be there. Their apartment was sparse but clean, with evidence of a mother's love visible in the handmade decorations and carefully arranged toys that Sophie treasured despite their obvious second-hand origins. Marcus found himself thinking about Sarah and Sophie long after he and Emma had returned home that evening. Something about their situation resonated with him on a level that went beyond simple sympathy or concern. Perhaps it was recognizing the particular exhaustion that comes with single parenthood. Or maybe it was seeing Sophie's resilient spirit despite her circumstances, but he felt compelled to maintain contact with this family that had entered his life so unexpectedly. Over the following weeks, what began as occasional check-ins evolved into a genuine friendship that surprised both Marcus and Sarah with its depth and natural development. The relationship that grew between the two families was unlike anything Marcus had experienced since his divorce. Emma and Sophie bonded immediately, their friendship transcending the age difference and bringing joy to both girls, who had been navigating the complexities of single-parent households. For Emma, having Sophie around provided the sibling-like companionship she had been missing, while Sophie gained access to the stability and security that Marcus's more established household could provide. Sarah, initially cautious about accepting help from someone she barely knew, gradually allowed Marcus to become a source of support that she hadn't realized how desperately she needed. What neither Marcus nor Sarah expected was how their mutual support would evolve into something deeper and more meaningful than friendship. Marcus found himself looking forward to their conversations with an anticipation that surprised him, discovering in Sarah intelligence, humor, and resilience that he found deeply attractive. Sarah, who had been focused solely on survival and providing for Sophie, began to rediscover aspects of herself that had been dormant during her years of struggle, feeling appreciated and valued in ways that extended beyond her role as a mother and provider. The transformation in both families was gradual but unmistakable. Marcus's apartment, which had felt somewhat empty and provisional despite his efforts to create a warm home for Emma, suddenly felt alive with the presence of Sarah and Sophie during their increasingly frequent visits. Emma blossomed, having another child to care for and play with, developing a protective older sister relationship with Sophie that brought out her nurturing side. Sophie, who had been somewhat withdrawn due to the instability in her young life, became more confident and outgoing as she experienced the security of having multiple adults who cared about her well-being. The moment Marcus realized that his feelings for Sarah had evolved into love was during an ordinary Tuesday evening when both girls had fallen asleep on the couch while watching a movie, and he and Sarah found themselves talking quietly about their dreams and fears for their children's futures. In that simple domestic scene, Marcus recognized that they had created something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. A family built not on traditional expectations or societal conventions, but on genuine care, mutual support, and the kind of love that grows from shared struggles and small daily kindnesses. The proposal, when it came nearly a year after that first meeting at the playground, was as unexpected and natural as everything else about their relationship. Marcus had been planning something elaborate and romantic, but the moment presented itself during another ordinary day at Miller's Park, the same playground where their story had begun. As he watched Sarah push both girls on the swings, laughing at their demands to go higher and higher, he realized that this was the life he wanted permanently, not just for the happiness it brought him, but for the completeness it offered to all four of them. Their wedding was small and intimate, attended by close friends and family who marveled at the love story that had emerged from a single moment of crisis and compassion. Emma served as maid of honor while Sophie was the flower girl, both girls beaming with the satisfaction of having played crucial roles in bringing their parents together.